All right. Let's see. Okay. every time there's little teeny tiny technical glitches, but yeah, anyway, can you all hear me? Are we good? Are we live? Is it working? You can turn your mic on.
As I can tell, I don't know.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Coin Jam podcast. Rookie mistakes. Even though this is our 4th episode, I'm still making rookie mistakes. I've got I've been on, did a couple of other podcasts recently. I think they were using a platform called StreamYard, which I think is relatively popular with other people that do live stream podcasts or whatever. So maybe we'll look into something like that, even though we do have a Zoom account just for this. So anyway, hey everybody in the live chat, Encore, Stock Jock, glad y'all can hear me. Frog Pup was in there earlier. This is episode 4 of the Coin Jam podcast. I'm Charlie from Overtime Arcade on YouTube. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Jeremiah Jackson from Coin Op Corner on YouTube, Liam from Retrobotics on YouTube, and Kay from Prime Arcade on Facebook, on TikTok, basically everything other than YouTube. So the 4 of us get together once a month. It's usually the last weekend of the month or the 4th weekend of the month. And we talk about all things related to coin op amusement machines, classic golden age coin op video games, pinball machines, amusement games, redemption games. Sometimes we talk about pachinko, pakislo, whatever you call it, slot machines, cigarette machines, jukeboxes, all kinds of stuff. So and now my YouTube studio is telling me we have an excellent connection now. And I know, Jeremiah, you were having connection issues earlier, but you look good right now. There's been some additions in your background. We'll get to that in a little bit. But why don't we go ahead and get started? Thanks for everyone that's joined us. I was like really, really well prepared this time. I had everything ready to go. And then it always sort of gets me because like you have to connect Zoom to the YouTube streaming service. Then I share my slides to show the coming soon image and Jeremiah's awesome theme song that he created for us. And then I have to have that show up on YouTube and then click go live on YouTube. And then it gets weird, when you're full screen and all that sort of stuff. But I think we're ready to go. So Kay, Leah, and Jeremiah, how are you guys doing?
Tired.
Yeah, you've been busy lately with restoration stuff and with non-restoration stuff.
Yeah, very busy. Trying to set up moving and dealing with new acquisitions and things. One piece of cool news, it's officially come out that I and my wife and the rest of our team are BattleBots world champions, which is awesome.
World, like let's emphasize that. You guys won, your team, which is called what? Blade Saw?
Saw Blaze.
Saw Blades, okay. You won the world, like this is the World Series, the Olympics, the Super Bowl of BattleBots all wrapped into one.
Yep, it aired on Discovery this last week.
That's awesome. And you were telling me about this, but you didn't win, like the competition wasn't this past weekend. It just went on the air last weekend. So how long ago did this competition actually happen?
It happened in October of 2022.
So that's quite an embargo to have to sit on. Not spoiling that to all your friends and family and people that know you and have to like act like you're not, devastated or not overjoyed. So how did you play that off?
I know who won, but you'll wait and find out.
See, I could see your personality, Liam. I could see you have that poker face to hold it, but I don't know how Sam was able to keep it to herself and not, quietly, share her joy.
Quietly. So. But yeah, no, that was a fun end of the week, and picked up another game yesterday. So I guess in terms of pickups, this month we picked up a millipede cocktail machine yesterday.
Yeah.
Which is completely waterlogged. Hopefully the cabinet is savable. At least some of it will be. But we have a spare
The top of it
13-inch
looks
monitor.
nice.
Yeah, the top is perfect. The top of it's perfect, but the trackball sounds horrendous. You scroll across it, it just makes this horrible grinding sound. So clearly something's gone wrong there, and that'll need to be repaired or replaced. I also picked up a lunar lander control panel complete the other day.
And you were worried about this one, right?
Yeah, so it turned up in apparently a junkyard, an auto junkyard in Arizona. And it was on offer up, and the guy ended up shipping it to me, but I didn't realize how big this thing was. Of course, I should have realized it. I have an asteroids. I can see how big the control panel is. But
it might be bigger than the original one from the Apollo program, from the LM.
Oh, for sure. I thought those lunar lander thrusters were smaller than that, but the thruster on the Atari is like 8 inches wide or something. Just the handle, it's ridiculous.
And so are you planning to convert your asteroids to a lunar lander, or have the ability to like swap control panels?
That is the idea. Our asteroids came out of Disney World. It's missing its original coin door. I don't think the PCB is original to the cabinet. So the plan is to just pull the dead PCB out, replace the control panel, replace the marquee, but leave the side art intact and don't hack up the harness or anything. And just have it be playing lunar lander until we can eventually find a lunar lander cabinet.
That's cool. Yeah, so you got the lunar lander control panel, you picked up the millipede cocktail, and other than that, you've kind of been on a pause with pickups, right? Because you're about to move.
The only thing has just been like small parts or things that have shown up. We picked up half a Smash TV PCB.
Half of one, yep.
So that's
I'm going to try to help you out with the other half.
Yeah, I have to pick up some more ROMs or obtain a programmer or something, but that's just going on the back burner because Smash TV is currently wrapped in plastic.
You'll be, and we'll talk about this a little bit later when we get into, we're going to talk about sort of organizing collections and game rooms and stuff, because you're about to, move houses and take apart one game room and set up a whole new one. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Kay, how about you? Any interesting machines you've picked up recently? Anything like that?
So I think I mentioned it in the last episode, but I had picked up a Time Soldiers and a Choplifter. The Time Soldiers has already been sold. I sold it to an arcade not too far from here. And he's leaving it as a Time Soldiers for now, but it was a Satan's Hollow originally. It got converted. He's going to locate some of the original pieces, and he's going to deconvert it back into a Satan's Hollow.
Those parts can be hard to come by. I know Troy from Troy's Restorations is doing a Satan's Hollow restoration right now, and he's having a heck of a time finding the joystick because it's a two-way flight stick. And like a midway 4-way flight stick is relatively common, Gorf, Tron, whatever. But the 2-way is hard to find. He's trying to figure out, do I buy a 4-way and like rig up some kind of restrictor plate or something like that?
Yeah, he's not in any real hurry to get it done, but I know that underneath the vinyl, the original side art is there. I don't know what condition it's in, but it's there. And the control panel is original. It's just been hacked up a little bit. So maybe you can restore that without having to find an entire control panel, just find the pieces for it. But
and in the meantime, Time Soldiers is a fun enough game. It's
it'll do.
Kind of like Akari Warriors. Yeah.
About a week after I sold it to him, I found another Time Soldiers a couple hours away, and it was just a garage sale posting, and they had it listed for cheap, and they said, I'm not going to respond to messages, just come grab it. I was like, well, it's 2 hours away. So I messaged anyway, and thankfully they responded, and I offered them a little bit more to hold it for me, and I just jump in the truck and go get it, and they did. So I picked up another Time Soldiers. This one is a converted Qbert, and it works. It's playable, but one of the joysticks internally has been, like, the little PCB is pretty much destroyed. So there's no rotary in that joystick.
The rotary, yeah.
So I mean, you can play it, but you're just shooting up the entire time. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to find a replacement joystick for that, but everything else on it is fine. It's got a beautiful monitor on it. I'll rebuild it anyway, but it was a pretty well done conversion. The only way you can tell it's a Qbert is just by looking on the tag on the back or looking on the burn in on the monitor.
Very distinctive burn on a Qbert
Oh yeah,
monitor.
I've seen that little geometric pattern on quite a few monitors.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And anything you've brought home, or this is all for work?
Well, I did buy a Cyclone pinball machine for myself.
Yeah.
I paid it wasn't a bad price for it, especially since cosmetically it's in fantastic condition. Just the side art and the play feel, there's not really hardly a scratch on the thing. But I bought it non-working. It would boot and you could play, but there's a flipper coil missing, and the Ferris wheel, like the belt was removed and replaced with zip ties, so it's not actually strong enough to rotate consistently. So if you shoot the ball in there, it just gets stuck. The pop uppers don't work. It's just a bunch of little things. So I'm going to completely go through it before I actually move it into my game room. So for now, it's just sitting at the shop.
That's a keeper for sure.
Oh yeah, I bought that one specifically for myself.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And Jeremiah, we were just talking about the Apollo program and the lunar module. It seems almost like, your internet is so crummy that we're talking to you from the far side of the moon. Hopefully your audio is coming in okay. Can you hear us, Jeremiah?
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it sounds like you're on the moon. But
Okay.
I think it's workable, right? It's like some people pay good money for a filter that simulates this effect.
Is it any better without the video?
I can't tell. It's fine.
Not really.
Okay. Okay.
So how about pickups and game room updates on your side?
So I keep saying this like a broken record or a broken jukebox in our case, that I'm done with pickups. But then I saw that a person in Winchester, which is pretty close to me, had a bunch of empty cabinets for sale for $50 a pop. So I shot the link to the Coin Jam writers room, and Mr. Charlie here wanted to get behind me. So I went and I got them for him, and well, there they are.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think you said that was a Jungle Hunt, the title one.
I think so. Yeah. And so your image is frozen, but we can see the cabinet. So we can see the joust clear as day. And I just finished a joust. So do I need another joust? No, but I've got most of the parts to, put another one together. And that one looks to be in pretty decent shape. Like most of them, I saw the pictures you sent me, it's been dragged on the bottom a little bit, but it's never been painted over. The side art's still there. So that's great. It's even got its Achilles heel, which sometimes it's hard to find on joust cabinets, Liam. And that other one is a Taito. And when we were looking at the pictures, we could tell it was a Taito. I guess it had been converted to Ninja Turtles based on the control panel. And when Jeremiah went and picked it up, I was like, which Taito cabinet is this? Which game is it? Because they used the same cabinet on a dozen or so different games like Kicks and Jungle King, Jungle Hunt, Alpine Ski, several others. And usually you can tell from the color on the sides, but when it's been painted over. So I was asking Jeremiah, hey, can you see any color poking through? Is there anything coming through the black? And we saw some green coming through, which is a sign that it's either Jungle King, which is the original version, the original ROM set, or Jungle Hunt, which is what Taito was forced to change it to when they got sued by the estate of the creator of Tarzan. So like the original Jungle King has like the Tarzan voice, or the vocalization, the scream he makes when he swings on the vines, right? I'm not gonna try to do that here. Right.
No,
And it looked
that was it. You got it.
Yeah. And the character was like Tarzan, but then they got sued. Taito got sued, so they had to change it to like an explorer with like a safari hat, and they changed the name to Jungle Hunt so that it was no longer a ripoff of Tarzan, King of the Jungle. So I thank you, Jeremiah. It makes what a great addition to your background. And maybe we'll see it for the next couple of episodes until we can figure out either a way for me to get down there and meet up and pick it up. Otherwise, for now, it's helping with earthquake prevention, right? Like if the roof were to cave in, it's one more thing to help prevent the house from coming down on you.
Wow, way to go, jinxing them.
It's keeping the floor down. Is my video come through relatively clear?
If you were on the moon, I would say it's a great connection.
Okay.
We've got a
because
consistent side profile shot of you.
Is this
Eric,
coming through?
from Charlie's wife to Jeremiah. Oh no. Oh no. So for those of you that are listening and not watching, Jeremiah has a little letter here, and it says from Jeremiah to Charlie's wife. Is this going to get me in trouble? You're going to read something on air? She doesn't watch this, by the way. Stop. Yeah. And the letter just says stop. You know, for a while, I keep waiting to get the hammer drop down on me or an ultimatum or something, but you know, the way the kids respond to it, and she would much rather have them play these games than like, you know, Call of Duty or something violent like that. Yeah, and I say that until eventually I get a Mortal Kombat, right? But she's been the one saying, hey, why don't you move them into different places, that sort of thing. And I think, and we'll get to this in a little bit, I've got some more games that need to come down here, and there's like no room left in this room. There's no room left on this breaker. So I've got to come up with some clever things to find more places in the basement. For now, everything is constrained to the basement and the garage, but we'll be overflowing soon. So anything else, Jeremiah, you picked up recently or things you've been working on? I think we may
It's
have
kinda-
lost. Oh, hello?
Am I
Jeremiah?
here? Am I here? Hello?
I don't know. Kind of, but it looks you got a mute symbol on. There you go.
I muted my video. So I put in an offer on another old claw machine that was kind of in between the two designs of the ones that I have, but I never heard back on that. Other than that, I haven't picked up anything else. I've actually sold a few machines. I sold the cigarette machine and the pachinko machine, and I'm kind of trying to get down to just the stuff I really, really want to keep, and then
So
I
you
have
did-
room in case I find.
You did get rid of the the cigarette machine. You found a buyer.
Yeah, he was willing to meet me halfway distance wise, and I did double my initial investment, but my initial investment was only $100. So after the gas, I probably maybe came out even.
And what's the buyer gonna do with it?
He was just putting it in a man cave. I mean, you can't put candy bars or anything like that in it. The design of the mechanism is built around the size of a cigarette box, so there's not much you can do with it other than look at it.
Interesting. So are you looking for more cigarette machines to restore?
No. If I get anything else, I want to get either, like I said, a Mappy or another old claw machine. And I really can't think of anything else I want. I mean, I got my Pac-Man and my Galaga and all that, and those are the ones I've always wanted. So
Okay. All right. It's good to have limits. So yeah, as for me, let me actually pull up my list here. So I know we were talking last time, you know, it was right at the end of April. And you know, I made the joke that okay, I'm done for the month, right? I had picked up only 2 cabinets in April as of that episode, neither of which I've shown yet on my YouTube channel. I'll do a pickup video soon, overdue for that one. And then literally the next day, right? So we did the last podcast episode on Saturday night, which is when we normally do it. So thanks everybody for joining us on this special Memorial Holiday Weekend Sunday episode. So Sunday morning, I'm sitting there and I'm doing, I'm getting things ready to, you know, like promote and like release the audio only version of the podcast, which I always do the next day when I'm able to download the recording from YouTube after it finishes processing. I do on Sundays, I do this like roundup of all the, you know, arcade related content on YouTube, and I do a list and send that out. So I just done that. And so I was sort of in a transitional state into, okay, well, what do I do next with my day? And I just casually checked Facebook Marketplace, as all of us sort of degenerates are want to do. And what do I see but a for sale listing for a working Asteroids Cabaret for exactly $100, not too far away from my house. So I quickly realized with my wife that we had nothing going on, and as long as I took a couple of the kids, I could go on this trip for a couple of hours to go pick this thing up. So I messaged a seller. He said yes, responded immediately. So I think I was in the car within 15 minutes, I think, of seeing that listing. And it's pouring rain, right? Which is often the case, right? And so I pack all my stuff. I usually have the truck sort of relatively ready to go to make a pickup. So I've got tarps and stretch wrap and, moving blankets and ratchet straps. And I get up there, it's pouring rain. So I'm driving down the street, and like there was a sign that said the street's closed. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So I just ignore that, drive around it. Turns out the power had been out since like the day before. So this guy, the only way he was able to put this listing up is that he has a whole house generator that was still running, 12, 18 hours after the power went out. He figured, hey, still a perfect time to sell something from my house and the power's out. But yeah, saw it in person. It was working. Loaded up into my truck. It was able to fit, in the bed of my truck with the tonneau covered down and the tailgate closed. So I didn't even really need to wrap it or anything, and got it home, and I got it for $100. And it's crazy. I did a pickup video about it. Asteroids, I think it's the highest production run of any Atari video game. Something like 60,000 cabinets were made, but they only made was 600 of the cabaret version of Asteroids, and like Major Havoc, they only made 500 of the dedicated Major Havoc cabinets. So this is one of the rarest Atari sort of versions out there. So if you're gonna get an Asteroids, it's one to get. And I see Angelina in the live chat says, crazy lucky, I have one too. And it's cool, Angelina. Well, one, that's really awesome that you've got a Asteroids Cabaret. I know I've seen them on Todd Tuckey has done videos on them. He's had some through his shop. I see I saw Joe or Ron from Joe's Classic Video Games. He's had at least one through his shop. And I was in Philadelphia for work this week, and met up with a buddy, and we went to the Fishtown Barcade. So this is like the actual like registered trademark barcade chain in New York, and they Philly and a couple other places. They had a working Atari Asteroids Cabaret on location at this barcade, which is really, really cool. Yeah, and Mark, a time runner from Arcade Radio, said Atari made 500 Quantums too. So yeah, a couple of machines out there, very that went into full production, but very, very low runs. And Mark, I don't know if you saw a recent episode. I was wearing my Arcade Radio T-shirt, so I hope you appreciated that. So yeah, so that was April for me. And I was gonna say that I've made no pickups in May, but Jeremiah did me a huge favor yesterday, grabbing me those two cabinets. So I haven't taken possession of them, but they have been retrieved from the cellar, and yeah, they'll be holding down the floor at Jeremiah's place until I'm able to retrieve them myself. Did my mic just cut out? Hang on a second.
I can hear you.
My headphones just died.
Now I don't
Now I
hear you at
can't
all.
hear you.
Nope.
How about now?
There you go. The joys of doing
Okay.
a live show.
Yeah, something happened. Like it went beep, beep, beep in my ear. And then I was able to reconnect it. But then for some reason, it changed the microphone to the headset, and I don't even have the headset microphone boom down. Anyway, we're good. I'd say we will edit this out in post, but if I edit anything, YouTube removes the live chat, which is ridiculous. So yeah, Angelina saying 2000 made for the Asteroids Cabaret. I don't think it was 2000, Angelina. I saw on the Vintage Arcade Gal price guide, only 500 of the, oh no, yeah, of only 500 of the Asteroids Cabaret. Maybe you're thinking of Asteroids Deluxe at 2000, but yeah, very cool. So yeah, and I was looking for, when I was in Philly, I was looking for some pickups and really didn't find anything. Sent a couple low balls out there and nothing, no bites, nobody took them. So moving on. projects you're currently working on. Liam, despite the move, you've made some good progress lately with a couple of different machines that you've been working on, and you've released some videos about them too. So why don't you give us an update on your progress?
Yeah, so may recall on the last podcast, I talked about Firefox. Picked that up at the beginning of April.
Another rare Atari game. Very
rare. It wasn't as rare when it was made, but not many of them survived because Firefox is prone to explosive ends. The monitor would blow up and the Laserdisc would disintegrate. So
it's got not just one time bomb, but 2 ticking time bombs inside that cabinet.
So yeah, we got this thing last month. It was in cosmetically perfect condition, but it had the original Amplifone raster and it had failed Laserdisc player. But the exciting update is it works. We were able to fix both the unfixable monitor with the help of Jasaski from Kalov. He owns Game Archive. He helped develop this fix for the
Jess's
monitor.
M Havoc on Kalov. I think.
M Havoc. He developed this fix for it, and we were able to test it out. So it may be the first time that it's actually been tested out on an actual Amplifone raster in a cabinet. So that's really cool.
So from the theoretical to the practical.
Yeah, he had tested it on a TV tube or something, but he didn't have a spare raster monitor that he could actually run it on. So it was really validating to see that it actually came up with Firefox, and we were able to fix the Laserdisc player also. My wife, Sam, she created a jig to affix the mirrors and reattach the magnets to the mirrors so that we were able to put them back in the machine and calibrate them. So that
use a 3D printer for that?
Yeah, it was 3D printed, and those the magnet jig made it so much easier because the original guide was you have to hold these magnets in place manually for 15 to 30 minutes per magnet, and there are 4 of them, and you're not able to move at all. So the jig made this like a breeze. Just put it in and leave it overnight, and it's done.
Set it and forget it.
Set it and forget it. But the machine is working, so that's really, really cool. It's been really fun to play it. Currently, it's powered down. I've got the Laserdisc in storage because I've not been able to really deal with it, and it's hot in the workshop. I don't want to damage the Laserdisc, but it was really cool to actually get to hear it play. It's got really cool music, really interesting gameplay. So I'm quite excited about that.
And that was the video you released today was fixing the amp raster monitor.
Yes. So we sort of did this in parallel. We did the monitor repair and the Laserdisc repair at the same time. I had a Laserdisc, I had one in the car and I took it with me and was tinkering with it after work, where I was up in Maryland. But we sort of did those at the same time. So next up after the monitor video will be the video about actually fixing the Laserdisc player. So
there you go.
Looking forward to that. Outside of Firefox, in terms of projects.
You did your Robotron video.
Yeah, we did the Robotron video, but that was sort of backdated since our Robotron is working. We're just trying to get through footage. I did some more work on our Tron, trying to make it a little less finicky. Depends on your viewpoint, it may have succeeded. That Tron is a special problem child that never really wants to work properly. And I think that's mostly it. I haven't really been doing much on the other games because everything else is working. I mean, Joust works. I think, actually, no, that may be since the last podcast. Yeah, we completed Joust.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And Joust is in the game room right now also.
So it was fun to do a parallel project with you, Liam. We're going to have to do.
So how's your Joust high score right now, Charlie?
54,850. I haven't really been putting
So
too
I'm
much time
currently
into it
at
yet.
59. So
Okay.
Just letting you know.
I'll put some practice in. We got to make sure we're both playing the official Twin Galaxies settings.
I'm using whatever the factory defaults are.
Yeah, me too. That's usually what Twin Galaxies is.
And for reference for viewers, the scores that Charlie and I are talking about are generally just crap scores. The default score is higher.
that score is good enough to get number 2 on the default scoreboard, right?
Yeah, number 2.
So,
The first
yeah.
one is 100,000 something, right?
Yeah. Awesome. And so Jeremiah, we were entertained in the background. What's your cat's name again?
My cat's name is Molly. He's a boy.
Oh, okay.
I named
So Molly was inspecting those cabinets. I'm assuming because they smell like rodent nests, and Molly wanted to investigate.
Yes, it was quite funny. I heard a thud, and then behind me, he's on top of them, and he stayed up there for a little while. So
Okay.
he single-paully saves my videos by doing crap like that.
He's in all of your thumbnails, right?
Most of them, yeah.
And possibly my favorite clip, which I don't know how many letters you've gotten from the ASPCA, where you took one of Molly's 9 lives in a fit of rage. But folks should definitely check out. I think that was your cocktail claw machine video, right?
I also did it in a claw machine video before that, and someone I knew came up to me and said, "You need to do another video where you throw the cat at a claw machine." Say no more.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, and folks enjoying that background. So what about you, Jeremiah? What have you been working on other than picking up cabinets on my behalf and looking for vintage claw machines? What have you been putting your soldering iron to lately?
I haven't done much of anything. I've been really busy with like work related stuff this month. I think that, yeah, since the last episode, I did finish my video on that claw machine. That claw machine there, which was incredibly difficult to put together, and that's the only arcade related thing I've really been working on. I'm hoping to, in the coming weeks, finish that third Pac-Man machine and get it done so I can sell it. In fact, the guy that I bought these from said he was possibly interested in it when I do get it done. So I'd like to get that done sooner than later.
There you go. Now you've met you got another local connection to trade stuff with.
Yep.
There you go. Awesome. And so, like you were saying, you've been busy with work stuff. And fortunately for Kay, that means working on arcade machines, because Kay does this, for a living. So what's been the interesting stuff coming and going through your workshop lately, Kay?
So I've got a truckload of stuff that I'll be taking tomorrow out of town. It's part of the reason why I feel so sore right now is because I'm taking 5 machines and none of them are light. I just finished a pair of Rush 2049 special editions, upright cabinets, and those will be going to their new home tomorrow. Also a Golden Tee will be going to the same home, which, yeah, those cabinets aren't light either. And then a crane machine going back to a restaurant, and a pinball machine going back to another restaurant. So my poor trucks, I'm going to hear the shocks.
Which ones? The people want to know.
Which pinball? It's a Bally 8 ball. It's an older solid state.
I was wondering which claw machine it was.
It's just a clean sweep.
Yep, Smart Industries. I had one of those. Those are very heavy.
Yeah, it's at least that one's got wheels. Most of the rest of these do not, even if they should. So I just finished those. I'll be delivering all that stuff tomorrow. What I think the next things I'll probably be working on, just because of the proximity of how easy they are to get to. I'm going to work on the lethal enforcers that I had sent off the PCB because it was working, but the sound module on those goes pretty bad over time, and you start to get a lot of screeching noises and just kind of staticky noises, and that the entire section has to be rebuilt. So I sent that off to have that done so I wouldn't have to deal with it. Got it back, and I know the monitor that's in it, the convergence is so bad, I'm probably just going to rip that tube out and replace it entirely rather than deal with it. So once I rebuild a monitor chassis, replace the tube and put it in there, I can find out if the guns work.
I think Liam recently was selling some parts for a lethal enforcers. I don't know if you got any left.
No, I think I only have the marquee and the manuals left. Everything else has been sold.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would potentially need is maybe a gun if I have to rebuild the one that's in it or whatever. but that's
Yeah,
about
those
it.
the guns that I had went off to an arcade in New York.
So yeah,
needed
this
those.
just has the generic Hap 45s, so I'm not worried about it. I also have a pair of Cruisin' Worlds, also uprights, that I picked up at the same time I picked those rushes up. That once I fix those up, we're probably going to end up in the same home because it's a barcade that's trying to expand its inventory a little bit. So a lot of the stuff I've been working on lately, they snatch it right up.
So I don't know if we've talked about this before, Kay, but again, you do this for a living, you own a business, Prime Arcades, right? What would you say is kind of the mix of your clientele, right? The split between, people that have these in their homes, whether it's, their first one or they've got a collection versus, businesses, barcades, restaurants, amusement centers. What's the kind of split between, like, I guess, called private customers versus businesses?
So for the longest time, the split was like 90-10 in favor of just private owners putting stuff in the garage. There are really no arcades in this area, not in my town especially. The only kind of arcades you can go to are the big, FECs or like Chuck E. Cheese or Mr. Gaddy's or places like that. I can't exactly sell to those places. But some arcades and like retro arcades and barcades have started to open up in some of the towns that are within my radius, just on the edge of my radius. And so towns that take, 2.5 hours to drive to. And they're looking for stock. So I've sold quite a few machines to a place in Abilene, quite a few machines to a couple of places in San Angelo that are actually they're like 3 blocks away from each other. You can just walk from one right to the other, and which has actually worked out pretty decently well for them because they're both downtown and they both have really nice spots. But they kind of cater to 2 different markets. One of them has like a craft beer selection and like local breweries and stuff like that, small batch kind of thing. And their arcade is, you pay to get in and everything's free to play. And it's mostly focused on pinball machines. It's got mostly newer pinballs, a lot of the newer Sterns and stuff like that. As new machines come out, he usually picks them up and adds them to the arcade. And then the other one is more of like a bar with a more of a full selection. The bar is the centerpiece. They built a brand new one it's huge. It surrounds the entire middle of the place. And they do mostly retro video games. And they don't charge to get in. There's no cover charge unless you're under 21. So if you're old enough to drink, you can play all the games you want for free. So it's kind of,
so no cover and the games are on free play.
Yeah. The games
awesome.
are just the appeal to get you in the door.
Yeah.
It's the bar that makes the money, which when it comes to barcades is usually the case anyway.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But yeah, and I know like Game Terminal in Nashville does that too. The games are on free play. The pins cost like 50 cents, but all the video games are on free play. There's no cover, so it's awesome. They've got a great selection there. And yeah, I'm sure they make their money off the bar and the food.
But by doing that, you don't have to worry about paying for the licenses, tax stamps, and taxes and all that. So really, you just have really nice interactive art, basically.
It's nice to have the pinballs on coins, though. It just alleviates the problem of people mashing the buttons and starting 4 games and running away.
Yeah, that's going to happen no matter what you do.
Well,
but to answer your question about what the split is more now, with those locations opening up, and just I guess more interest in general of people buying machines to put them in their businesses, whether it's just in like a waiting room or whatever. And usually they keep them on free play because as soon as I explain how tax stamps work, they're no longer interested in running coin op. But especially when it comes to like my multicades and things like that, those have been really popular to put into businesses. So it's become closer to 60-40, maybe even 50-50 now when it comes between personal owners and businesses.
And so, it's funny, the tax stamp thing, and I'm just responding to Angelina in the chat's looking for an Exity Facts PCB, the Exity trivia game. So Troy from Troy's Restorations had just popped in, and he I think he lives in Ohio, right on the Ohio-Pennsylvania line, so he's kind of near Arcade Jason. He was saying that in Ohio, the law in Ohio, even if you have the games on free play, if you have coin operated games at a public location, you need to register them. You need from the state, you need to get a tax stamp. even if they are on free play and you're not collecting any money, which is wild. So like, what if you put a Sega Genesis, you know, in an LCD in a box, in a cardboard box, right? Does that qualify as, you know, something that requires a tax stamp?
Probably
And I
depends
know,
on how your local comptroller is and how much of a jerk they feel like being.
yeah, yeah. And Jeremiah's probably like, hey, don't even get me started about the amusement business licensing and you know, various state laws. Wild. Yeah, as for me, I've been pretty busy since the last podcast, busy with projects. So I'm actually just looking at the videos I did in which order. So the video I released right after the last episode of the podcast was the painting episode, the HVLP painting episode for the joust. You know, where I touched up the sides of the cabinet and as much as possible tried to blend it in. That was interesting, you know, definitely a learning experience figuring out how to use HVLP for the first time. I know Liam did that for his joust, but he did the whole stencils. I was just doing some blending. You know, the color was a reasonably close match for the brown, not exactly perfect, but I'm okay with it, especially, you know, it's in the lineup, you know, no one's ever going to see it, but happy with that. And then I did the pickup video for the Asteroids Cabaret. And then I did the big grand finale of the joust, got everything working, tons of loose ends to wrap up, putting everything together. And yeah, it's great. It's down here. The kids have been playing it. They love it. That was a super long video, like well over an hour and a half. Yeah, what else have I been working on? You know, so that was you know, call it a big anchor project. And I'm going to spin up a whole bunch of additional projects, right? So I've started the Cubert restoration in earnest, mostly collecting parts for that. And I've got 2 Cuberts, and it looks like one of them is going to be a Cubert and the other one looks like it's probably going to be a Mad Planets. So I've been collecting parts for that, putting a board set together for Cubert, getting a flight stick for Mad Planets. Let's see. And the video I released today was the part 1 of a Missile Command cocktail restoration. So that's a machine that I got from a fellow member of the Claw forums in 2020. So almost 3 years. I think it was September. So almost 3 years ago. And it's just been sitting in my garage ever since, taking up space. So I finally cracked that open and you know, kind of took an assessment of what's going on there. This weekend, you know, with the long weekend, I've been working on the Asteroids Cabaret, right? So even though I got it working, there were some things I wanted to do with it. It had a hacked up like light switch as the power switch, and that was tied into a replacement fluorescent light for the marquee. It's really designed to be like an under, you know, like on your, you know, under your cabinet above a counter in your kitchen sort of light. There's a doorbell wired in as a credit switch on the coin door, and you know, the image would fade in and out a little bit. And I know I was cracking up Jeremiah when I was just smacking the side of the cabinet to get the picture to come back, because it would just fade out to nothing. But a little bit of percussive maintenance to the cabinet brought the picture back. So anybody who grew up with a CRT television at, you know, parents or grandparents' house or whatever knew, hey, if the picture goes out, you just smack it, right? So I've been working on that, and I was actually doing that just before hopping on for the episode. So that'll be next weekend's video. Sort of what I've done, kind of, you know, not really a restoration of the Asteroids Cabaret, more of just a refurb, sprucing it up, you know, getting all that power, you know, wiring back in a good way, rebuilding the marquee light with as close to original parts as possible. Cleaned up the edge connector, reflowed a bunch of headers, replaced the 2N3055 bottle cap. I think that's the transistor on the AR board, you know, and just sort of getting it, you know, really locked in and making it basement worthy. So that's what I've got going on. And then coming up, let's see, you know, transitioning to, you know, what all of us sort of have, you know, coming up in the near future. For me, I've got a few more pickup videos I need to do. I've got 4 more machines in the garage that I haven't, revealed yet. Another Atari, another Williams, my first Sega cabinet, and another one that I won't give away. So I've got four more pickup. I think I'll probably do 3 pickup videos because 2 of them were a twofer. So I've got some pickup videos to do and some new projects to kick off.
Come on.
Seems we've lost Charlie again.
Very professional podcast. We're very prepared.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we have
Yeah.
only the greatest.
This has never happened before. And now it's happened twice. And it was happening right when I was talking. Like my headphones, headset disconnect. And anyway, so so I'll have I need to get caught up on pickup videos, and I'm gonna spin up all these projects at once. And then I'll be drowning in stuff. But it's nice to have more than one thing going at a time, because if you run into a roadblock, right, you can just pivot and make progress somewhere else. Like if there's a part that you're waiting on or something that you can't source and you have to put out a want to buy or searching for something, it's good to have multiple different projects, at least I find, going on at once, so that you're never really ever stumped or stuck on anything. So Liam, yeah, I know you do the same thing. So once you get everything squared away at your new place, what are the next sort of things that you're going to be working on, whether it's current projects or future ones?
Well, Smash TV will happen. I think most of it is there now. If you through you and through Steve Unkalov, most of the parts have been sourced. So I just need to figure out a control panel. And once that's done, then the project should take shape. The millipede cocktail. We have a millipede PCB that works. We have a 13-inch monitor that works. All I need to do is fix the trackballs and figure out a way to stabilize the water damaged cabinet. And then hopefully it should be pieceable together, which should be nice. I do have that space shuttle pinball that's been just sort of languishing in the workshop for the longest time, because it's just such a big project. This thing is severely damaged. It needs a ton of work, a ton of money. But now that may be possible on the horizon when we have the new workshop. You get a pinball rotisserie and a pinball cart and all the right tools to actually work on that thing.
For anyone listening or watching that doesn't know what a pinball rotisserie is, can you explain that? It's not a kitchen appliance.
Oh, it's exactly like a kitchen appliance, except instead of putting a chicken on it, you're putting a pinball table. It's the idea is that you can rotate the table so you can get access to the back and the front, because a lot of things that are going on with a pinball machine when you're removing parts from the actual table, the actual play field, you have to be unscrewing and screwing things from both sides at once. It's not just like they're all bolted through the back and you just pull them off. It's every time that it could potentially be more inconvenient, it 100% is when you're dealing with the pinball machines.
Hey, do you have a rotisserie?
No, I don't tend to do like full playfield replacements or restorations and things like that most of the time.
Because
they're not time efficient. Yeah, but it's like a 60-hour job if you're doing it real thoroughly. So I ain't got that kind of time, man.
You just have somebody pick it up and hold it upside down for you?
Yeah. I just I pay someone to just do that, because paying by the hour for that is even cheaper.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do a full replacement of the playfield. As it turns out, on the space shuttle machine, the playfield is not warped or anything along that line, but everything on it is destroyed. The playfield top is destroyed, so we're going to hard top it. We're going to sand it down, remove everything on the top, but leave the wiring harness intact on the back, sand it down, install a hard top, and then put everything back on top of it.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, well, that's why I haven't done it yet. I have not
There you
had
go.
the time or money,
Wild.
because hard tops are not cheap.
Yeah, neither is buying a house.
No, neither is buying a house, which is why trying to cool it for the sake of my sanity, our sanity, everyone's sanity.
How about you, Jeremiah? What's next on your to-do list?
To fix that third Pac-Man machine. I really don't have anything else to fix, but I don't know how long that's going to take because I mentioned last episode that it's having the same problems as I had on one that had bad ROMs and bad RAM. I've replaced the ROMs and the RAM, and I'm having the same problems. So I need to go through the schematic and follow where all the ROMs and everything connects to the Z80 and just multimeter all that. And if I have to get the logic probe out, I'll do that and just see why the board is not making Pac-Man happen. This is also the one where the monitor had been on fire at one point. I have read the monitor, but I've yet to actually plug it in and try it. So I need to go through all those things. Hopefully when I turn that monitor on, it doesn't blow up again. I'm hoping it was just the flyback. Most of the smoke damage was around the flyback, so I'm kind of assuming on that one. But yeah, that's what's on my horizon is the third Pac-Man machine.
And I was just handed something by our lead research analyst on the production team. And it turns out that, you're just talking about the fixing the other of your 3 Pac-Man cocktails. You released part 1 of 2 of that series back 5 months ago, and you've forced your fan base to wait in agony for that part 2 for 5 months. So just wanted to remind you of that. If that helps inspire you.
Well, I figured one that video, they're just going to unsubscribe and not watch anything else. So I'll just string them along with all these ridiculous claw machine, smoke machine videos. And then once I run out of those, then I'll give them what they're actually here for.
I mean, it could be just a running gag like History of the World Part 1, right? Or keep them waiting for like Chinese Democracy or Duke Nukem Forever, kind of stuff. Okay. And Kay, what about you? You mentioned before that you decide on what to work on by what's, not as deep buried in the warehouse, right? So what's that next layer look like? What are you looking forward to?
So it depends where on the front line I feel like pulling stuff from. There's quite a few repairs in the shop that have been sitting and waiting on me for a long time that I should make a first priority. And so I kind of started on some of those recently. But at the same time, still trying to fix a few things and have at least some inventory up for sale at the same time. But a lot of those repairs are in the way of some of the things that I want to work on next. So it would behoove me to fix those just so they're out of my way. I've got a Cubert and a Robotron and a Frogger that are all buried in a back corner that I would like to make a priority. And some of the other machines that I've taken parts from and set aside and was going to put together later, I should probably get to, just because those parts are just sitting in my way and I refuse to move them. Because well, I'm about to work on that. Why would I get that out of the way now? I'll just have to go get it later.
I've got all these parts sort of tucked on the other side of that Munsters pinball in boxes, and eventually gets to the point where it's higher than the pinball machine. But it sounds like, Kay, what you need is a rather large claw machine from Jeremiah to basically be able to reach into the warehouse and grab a specific machine and pull it out for you and bring it to the front of the line.
Given my skill at crane machines, it's probably not the best plan because
One of those Amazon robots.
Get it about halfway and just drop it. Which would make for a great video. Hopefully that would give me some views, but
a new and more creative way to neck a monitor.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, we'll be talking about that in a minute. So yeah, anyway, how about, for the 3 of you, any parts you're looking for stuff that you're working on that you haven't been able to find, just to get the word out there in case anyone in our listener sphere is sitting on that one thing you need to complete a project?
Nope.
I need a flyback for a Mac Vision Tri-Sync monitor.
Oof.
Yeah, those are, no one has those.
Chad has one of those.
No, he doesn't.
Arcade Cup, no.
Or at least it's listed as out of stock on the website, and probably would never change that. So I doubt anyone's got one lying around, but I would settle for a chassis that, doesn't work well, but the flyback's still good. I could just steal that.
I got a Tri-Sync in the garage, but I don't think it's a Mac Vision.
Yeah. My DDR I think I've mentioned this before. I stole the monitor out of it a long time ago because I had sold a big buck hunter, and the monitor, like this is that monitor. The flyback died, and I didn't want to lose the sale because I was delivering it like the next day. So I just pulled my own monitor out of my DDR, threw it in the big buck, and I haven't replaced the monitor since. So there's just a giant gaping hole in the DDR where the monitor used to be. So it's really hard to play my DDR right now. If you don't have songs memorized, you're not going to do very well.
Yeah, I'm looking for just random parts as usual. Monitor brackets for the millipede cocktail, because I have the right monitor but not the right brackets. That would be something useful. Anything related to lunar lander, because I have the control panel now, but I don't have the lights PCB or even a lunar lander PCB or any of that kind of thing. So just sort of gently looking for that. And a Smash TV control panel. Definitely need one of those, because the guy who makes them on Kalov, apparently his shop was broken into.
Yeah.
And all his stuff was taken. So I don't think he's going to be making any control panels anytime soon.
They even stole his clipboard.
Yeah, they stole his clipboard.
Like he had a clipboard that had like, hey, here's, everyone that's bought, oh, somebody bought a Robotron control panel. Somebody ordered 2 Defender control panels, whatever. They stole the dude's clipboard. Yeah,
it's crazy. I feel so bad for the guy.
Do you have any idea how much a clipboard goes for at a pawn shop these days? I mean, come on.
I mean, they wanted all those customer leads, right? So if you see somebody else,
they took the custom bits too.
Yeah, if you see somebody hanging a shingle, selling reproduction Williams control panels, just out of the blue, be suspicious, be skeptical, ask questions. Just wild. For me, let's see. I've been piecing together the Qbert stuff. I've got basically a board set put together. I don't have a filter board, which isn't technically required. I do need to get a Qbert harness at some point, whether reproduction or original. I need a coin door. I've seen a couple Qbert coin doors, but just for insane prices. Just today, just before hopping on, and thank you, Troy, for the heads up. If you're still listening, Troy, Troy pointed me to a eBay listing for an original Qbert marquee, and I have one on the wall right there hanging up, but that is cracked up. Like it looks pretty bad in person. Even I would never want to backlight it with a marquee light. And the problem is that nobody is making reproduction Qbert marquees except for the prototype swearing marquee, right? Encore, I know Encore's got he's got a Qbert coin door, and maybe I'll have to take him up on that offer. But yeah, Troy pointed me to a marquee, an original normal Qbert marquee, and they were asking quite a bit for it, but the make it offer button was live, so I made an offer for 30% less than they were asking for, and they immediately took it. So that's great. So what's coming up left on for Qbert is mostly that harness and some sort of coin door. But I have a couple of things that I need for cabinets projects that I haven't announced yet, including one that's going to be a part that's going to be really hard to find, and probably the reason I was able to get this thing for cheap. I've got someone willing to. It's a piece of artwork. I've got someone willing to reproduce it, but I haven't even been able to find anyone with an original to scan just yet. So I think over the next month I'll get all these pickup videos done, so I can start talking about everything I need to help get the word out to all of our listeners out there. And so hey Troy. Okay, so that's the first half of the episode, and we're right at the 1 hour mark, and we do we talk about that stuff every time, sort of what's been going on in our worlds, what have we been working on, what's coming up, that sort of thing. And now we can shift to sort of the topics that are specific to this episode, the first of which is rookie mistakes, right? So we've all been doing this for at least a couple of years, and I know all of us have progressed in our skills and become better, and there's things that we've learned, right? We're progressing, certainly to the point where we feel comfortable making mistakes on video, because we know we're not going to make these completely silly mistakes that we used to make back in the day. So we were our homework was to come up with personal stories or general rules, things that we've maybe observed that others have done, rookie mistakes that they've fallen into, and so that everyone can learn from this and avoid these things. And Liam, you already mentioned necking a monitor. I have done that, and the worst part, I think I might have talked about that before on a podcast episode. And the worst part about it was I didn't own that monitor, but yeah, be careful. Treat those things like glass, because they are made of glass. And
Who knew?
yeah, exactly. So who wants to go first with some rookie mistakes that they've made, and sort of, this is a safe space, right? Everyone here is going to be supportive. So what are some rookie mistakes that y'all have made?
When you're plugging in a PCB on an older Atari game, make sure the plug is the right way, because sometimes they're not keyed and you will blow a board that way. And I've
Not
done
only
that.
make sure that it's plugged in the correct direction, but that it's secure on both ends and not kind of only
Cattywampus.
halfway in on one side, because that'll kill your AR too.
Because you take something out to test it and you pull the whole harness out, and now you've just got this unlabeled piece of plastic. Which way does it go? It's very hard to tell.
No, it's very easy to tell. You plug it in, and if it blew up, you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So
Which game was this?
asteroids.
Oof. Yeah, it's like I was saying, I was working on my asteroids this weekend, and I kind of noticed that. I'm like, so I pulled the edge connector out. I'm looking at it. I'm like, if I really contorted it, I could plug this thing in the wrong way.
But the
Right?
problem was I had the harness out of the cabinet.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why it was difficult, because I had the thing out on a bench and I was logic probing it. So it was hard to figure out which way it actually was. And well, I guessed wrong. So
And what did you end up burning out?
I'm not sure yet. I haven't really gone back and reevaluated it. It's currently wrapped in plastic.
Yeah. Oof. Did any magic smoke come out?
No, nothing smoked. It actually is still booting to test mode, but it's something is in the memory is not happy. At the very least. It's just watchdogging. But that's basically what I was doing before. So I don't know how much worse it got, but it certainly didn't get any better.
Okay. Kay, what about you? I know you're a professional now. You don't make, but what did younger Kay, what are some of the mistakes that younger Kay made back in the day?
I've got a list, so I'm just going to go
geez.
through them. I know I've mentioned it before. I know I talked about it with you guys. I'm not sure if I talked about it on a podcast episode or not, but I think I did. So I'll give the short version. Whenever you are working on a Nintendo monitor, the sound amplifier has a couple of plugs that are labeled JB and JC. They are the same size plug. They are keyed the same, but they are labeled. If you plug them in backwards, or you swap them out, you will send voltage the wrong direction, and your PCB will explode, and you get to watch sparks shoot out of it. I did that in front of a customer with his Donkey Kong Jr. once, and that's how I learned that you should really double check those labels before you plug your machine back in. There's been several times, and even fairly recently, where I've done a recap kit and put in one of the capacitors backwards. And capacitors are polarized, and when you put them in backwards, they explode. So I'm usually pretty good about double checking, triple checking my work to make sure I didn't put any in backwards, but sometimes it eludes me and I get an explosive reminder that I did it wrong. Another one that comes up, not so much a rookie mistake, more just a mishap, but there are some arcade cabinets that if you just put them in the back of your truck and you just throw a ratchet strap on them, for the most part, any machine will ride as long as you put the strap in the right place and tighten it down just like you should. But some cabinets have like a kind of a weird curve or design so that the ratchet strap isn't really
or something. Yeah.
Not really Z-Bax, but Galaga is a good example because the control panel, just the slope of it right around the sides where the control panel is, a a ratchet strap will usually not catch very well. It'll just kind of slide down until it eventually just slides off. So whenever you move something like a Galago, or in this case, a gyrus, a single strap just running across where the control panel is not sufficient. You need one going over the top, holding like where the marquee is. Maybe do two of them kind of like an X to hold it down a little better. I had a gyrus where my strap failed and slipped down, and the bottom of the gyrus fell forward, but the strap did not give entirely, so it forced it back through my back windshield.
Oof.
So suddenly I had gyrus at the cab with me.
And did you what's the I don't have one. I know Andy from MCC Just Cades has what's the bar that you can get to put behind
Like
the
a headache
window?
rack?
Yeah, headache rack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a headache rack now?
No, my previous truck, which was an absolute beast, it was like a 1994 Dodge Ram 2500 with had a Hemi in it, and or no, a Cummins diesel. Sorry, had a Cummins
My
diesel
current
in
truck
it.
has a Hemi.
And it was a beast of a truck. I had a headache rack in that one and my lift gate, and I was able to transfer the lift gate over, but the headache rack wasn't the same size as my new truck's a little bit different size, so the headache rack couldn't transfer over, which is a shame. I loved that thing because I could strap anything to anything because I had so many options where to strap. But yeah, having a headache rack definitely would have saved my back windshield at that point.
And speaking of issues with trucks, right? Like for me personally, I always go super crazy, like, and to the point where sellers often look at me funny because I am, wrapping and strapping, over and over and over again, usually because I'm going a long way and I don't want to have any kind of issues, to the point where I think I mentioned this on a previous podcast. When I was transporting the Star Trek: The Next Generation, I actually got into a minor accident. There was road work, and a tractor trailer was like drifting over to the point where my choice was going to the tractor trailer or going to the Jersey barrier. And so like I scraped up the side of my truck and gave the whole thing a good shake. And the pinball machine didn't move. That was my old truck. But I actually made a mistake, just recently on one of the cabinets that I need to do a pickup video for, where I strapped it down so hard that I broke some of the wood. So I'm going to have to repair it. But Jumping General in the live chat said, I asked, what rookie mistakes have you all made in the live chat? And Jumping General said, always tie the cabinet down tight in the bed of your truck when transporting. My kangaroo jumped out. And yeah, he has sent me, we've been chatting lately, and he's sent me a bunch of photos of that. Like literally his kangaroo cabinet, Atari Kangaroo, fell off the back of his pickup truck and smashed on the ground. And he has, painstakingly, Humpty Dumpty put that thing back together again. I think the only thing that was really bad was he cracked not the neck, but the neck board, right? So the monitor survived. The neck board is all cracked up. So we were talking about, different ways of fixing that, but it's also a Matsushita monitor. So is it really worth, repairing? So,
sure it is.
Well, I mean, you're the guy that fixes anything, right? If you can fix an Amplifone raster, right? But yeah, Matsushitas have a very bad, and that's just a 19-inch standard res monitor, and I think you can probably take that tube and just hook it up to a more common Geo7 or 4900 chassis, if I'm not mistaken. But he's been doing a great job and has rebuilt, like the front kick panel needed to be rebuilt, and it's looking really good. So nice job with that. Angelina says, always play the game before you buy it. Yeah. So if you're picking up a game and it's being advertised as being in some sort of working state, right? Whether it's being advertised as working or maybe it's playing blind, right? Get them to prove that to you and then negotiate. That is a very good tip, because especially a game, these games aren't getting any newer, right? 40 years old, something that's not being maintained. If they say that it's working and you show up and they turn it on and it's not working, well, you're probably going to be getting a discount if you know how to negotiate. The corollary to that, however, is no matter what, do not give in to your temptation to try to fix the game at the seller's house, right? So, if the image is all screwed up, don't try messing with the sync. Don't try fiddling with anything. Don't go testing don't go testing voltages.
If the
Don't
back
go-
door is off, don't push in the.
Leave it off. Don't touch the interlock switches.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do anything.
Just be like, well, that
because-
seems broken.
because if you fix it, that price is going to go up, right? And you don't want to, give
To add
your,
on to that,
yeah, Go
if
ahead.
if you're gonna play test something, do it with both players.
Yep.
We picked up a Crystal Castles cocktail machine, and we were told it worked perfectly. I played single player, and it worked perfectly. And then we took the thing home, and my wife and I sat down to play 2-player, and it works fine in single player every time, but in 2-player, it would just garble the screen and reset every single time. Eventually, I fixed it, but it was several months before I actually got around to doing it. But just if I had known that and seen that, maybe I could have negotiated.
absolutely. Yeah. And let it run for a little bit too, right? Because it might have some sort of, heat related issue where, once it's running for about 10 minutes, things can start happening. It gets, up to its full temperature. The monitor could have issues. And yeah, Mark Time Runner, said fixing the game makes it more expensive. That's words of wisdom passed down from John's Arcade, right? Don't fix the game for free, because all that's going to do is increase the price that it costs you to come home with it. And Mark from Back to the Media says, that's an awesome shirt. Yep. This says Back to the Media. This is Mark's retro game store in Winchester, Virginia. Earlier, Jeremiah was talking about Winchester, but that was Winchester, Kentucky. So Back to the Media is a retro game store and vinyl. They sell lots of vinyl and comics, all kinds of great stuff like that in Winchester, Virginia. And Mark is building a arcade to put in his back room. And I got a sneak peek at that, a week or two ago. He's got a nice, huge room right now that's just being used for storage, but he's repairing about 20 or so games in his garage that are pretty soon, hopefully, going to be launching an arcade in the back of his game store. Let's see. So I actually did a video on a rookie mistake, an entire video about it. I was messing with my Tempest, right? And that's a mistake right there. Don't ever mess with a working vector game. Although I violated that with all of my vector machines. I was having some flaky vectors, right? And I know, Liam, you're dealing with something like that. It's a little bit different with your Tempest right now. And I really just went to clean the PCB, and I pulled a bunch of the socketed chips to clean up the legs, right, with a scratch pen, a fiberglass pen. And then I put it all back together, put it into the machine, and it started freaking out. It was clicking the coin counter like crazy. And I tried checking everything, and I got so frustrated that I put the game away for 2 years. I didn't touch it for 2 years. I came back, and this was one of the first videos that I did on my channel. And I was going to do a whole video about diagnosing and troubleshooting and fixing the Tempest. And it turns out that when I had, removed all those socketed chips for cleaning and putting them back in, I put the CPU in backwards. Because the orientation of the CPU is different than how all the other ROMs and Pokies or whatever oriented on the game board. The CPU is turned a different way. So I put that chip in backwards, and sure enough, flipped it around, and it worked, although it was having issues because I'd sent voltages to the wrong pins on the CPU, replaced the CPU, and it's been working fine ever since. So that's a rookie mistake I made. Another mistake I made on the Tempest, and this is less in the electronics and more in the woodworking, similar to what Liam is dealing with now. I had a waterlogged cabinet, although it wasn't a cocktail, it was a cabaret, and I needed to remove the bottom, 4-6 inches of it. And I tried to sort of set up this brace to take my circular saw and run it across to cut it, and I really just clamped down a 2x4. And it moved a little bit, and so I didn't have a perfectly straight line. And now I know there's like a bar clamp sort of tool you can get for like $15 that really holds it. It's designed to be a guide for a circular saw for exactly this sort of thing. So That's just another one of those, right tool for the right job kind of thing. But a big part of that is just knowing that what that right tool is and that tool exists. And it's preferable to use other than something sort of just jury rigged together. Jeremiah, you were holding something up. Did you have something to add, rookie mistakes wise?
No, I was just playing with this tape measure.
Okay.
I'm not even halfway through my list, by the way.
Oh, then keep going.
We got sidetracked. And then an antithesis to your point earlier about, double check everything when you're picking a machine that's advertised as working. If you are buying a non-working machine like I typically do, just assume it's broke and don't plug it in. Because what are you going to do if you plug it in and suddenly it is working? Because, they moved it for you and suddenly it shifted in a way so that it comes on and works. Well, now the price just went up too. So if I'm buying a game that's busted, I'm like, yeah, that's busted. Just throw it in the truck. Here's your money. Bye. I don't want to plug it in. If it's partially working, I will trust your judgment. I'm out of here. So
Absolutely.
So other things on my list that I've written down. I have thrown a game out of the back of a truck, not while driving. It was just while trying to load it, I believe. But what's really unfortunate is it was a very rare Korean shooting game in a dedicated cabinet. It was called Peas Attack. It's just like this goofy game that uses a lot of pop culture references and you're fighting aliens and stuff like that. It's a really goofy game, but it was fun. But the dedicated cabinet with dedicated guns and everything, and it fell off the back of my truck just because it was such a large and awkward cabinet. It's kind of like a Virtua Cop cabinet, just in that kind of size. And I have a standard size lift gate. I don't have the extension like I should, and it was on wheels and it slipped off the back. So it crashed and burned, and I could hear the hissing from the monitor as it cracked open. Which it was a really nice 27-inch VGA CRT that I just lost immediately. That was the worst part of it. The PCB and the guns and everything I was able to salvage, but that monitor was the biggest hit because those are pretty tough to find, those monitors.
Can't be fixed once that vacuum's broken.
Nope, it's gone. It's a paperweight at that point. Another one, I was working on a monitor chassis. I forget which model. I want to say it was like a Hanorex Polo or something like that, but going through the flow charts or whatever, saying, hey, if you're having this problem, check this large ceramic resistor. If it's overheating, that's a symptom of this problem. So I decided to test that theory by clamping my hand directly onto that resistor to see if it was hot. And surprise, surprise, it was very hot. And I burned myself pretty good. I was like, that wasn't a good plan. Probably could have just put my hand over it a little bit, maybe.
Quick show of hands. Of the four of us, has any of us not shocked themselves ever working on a game?
Until about 2 weeks ago, I could say that I haven't, but
Really?
I shocked myself 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But that actually reminds me of something else I had to list: plugging in a monitor chassis without having put the flyback anode back into the tube.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say plugging in a monitor into something other than a isolation transformer.
No, I've done
Some
that
of them,
too.
like Nintendos. Yeah, because Nintendos have plugs that look like you could plug it right into the wall, and you cannot.
Yeah, no, that takes a different voltage than the 120 anyway. But no, I luckily where the anode was just lying, because it was the only thing I forgot to plug in. It arced directly to the frame. It makes a very high-pitched, loud whirring noise. If you've never had it happen before, I don't recommend trying it to hear it, but just a very loud, high-pitched noise. I shut it off immediately, and luckily
that's the Grim Reaper coming. Is what that noise is.
Yeah, don't grab the frame when that's happening, by the way.
Yeah, so in the Geo7s, the big filter cap generally will discharge.
Yes.
But if you blow the little fuse on a Geo7, it will not discharge. I learned that the hard way.
Got nowhere to go. Yeah,
I found that out a few times, and even now, whenever I move a Geo7, I put a screwdriver to both terminals just in case.
But as we've all shocked ourselves, we'll mention that my wife, who does a lot of the cap kits and things, she pointed out to me also she has never shocked herself, so she has one up on all of us. She is much safer.
I've done it a couple of times. The one that most sticks out to me is the first time, because it's like you're not ready for it, right? And it was I was actually working on the Donkey Kong Jr. cocktail, one of my first projects, and I had gotten a couple of red, because I got it with no monitor, so I actually picked up a couple of red tent monitors for next to nothing, but they weren't working because they're 18 inches and they're Nintendo monitors and they'll fit right in. And I was rebuilding one, and I can't remember if that neckboard has no like cardboard or plastic cover on the back, or if I had removed it, and I had like hooked it up and turned it on, and I like turned, and my arm just kind of grazed the back of the neckboard, and I made enough of a contact that I got a nice shock right in my arm that I was definitely not expecting. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I've been,
getting
I've
caught
been
up.
bit by a lot of things. You get used to it after a while. Sometimes you want it. It wakes you up. It's better than
Yeah,
coffee.
that's how you know you're still alive, right?
Oh yeah.
Just getting caught up in the chat because other folks are sharing rookie mistakes that they've made. Angelina's got a good one here, advice, right? Like, again, when you're buying a cabinet, always look inside to make sure that what's inside meets your expectations and what you're expecting to buy. So for example, if you're buying, let's say, a Pac-Man machine, and you turn it on and yes, it's Pac-Man, open it up and look inside to make sure that it's got, like, if you're expecting original boards to be in there, that it's got an original board in there and not a 60-in-1 or a bit kit or some other kind of thing that's maybe booting directly to Pac-Man. Make sure the inside is what you expect it to be. Les was asking if there's he was interested in finding people near him that have an armor attack. And Angelina recommended Clove and BYOC, but the VAPS site, which is part of Clove, has, for all these different games, listings of collectors and where they are in the world if you're trying to meet someone that's got a particular game. Mark from Back to the Media, again, the shirt that I'm wearing, says we all make rookie mistakes. He just made one by driving 6 hours each way to pay $1,000 for a Tempest that looked like it fell off the back of Jumping General's truck. I've seen that, and I saw the pictures of that, and yeah, he said he drove so far he felt committed to buy it once he got there. But yeah, don't worry, Mark. We'll get that game working soon enough. Steve Wallard said I did that with my claw machine PCB, put one of the ROM chips in backwards, and it didn't like that. Definitely not. Hopefully, it was not a rare or hard to find ROM chip. Again, Mark says he always assumes it's broken every time and doesn't plug it in because he, like me, he only buys broken games. Yeah, Angelina's picking up some games. Bad guy Mark Worley in the chat. Thanks for joining, buddy. Good to see you. Yeah, filter cap on the Geo2. Another thing when you're doing a cap kit on a Geo7, another thing on a Geo7 is, I forget which cap it is. It's like C302 or something like. Yeah, like on one side, it's screen printed on both sides, which is nice, right? Where it shows, the caps and the polarity and whatever,
Yeah,
except there's a misprint. And on one side it's correct, and on the other side it's printed in reverse. So you've got to
on the
follow.
part side is accurate, on the solder side it's backwards.
And the solder side is usually where you're doing the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So be very, very careful. Otherwise, you'll get a nice little firecracker of foil confetti. Let's see. Yeah, watch out for that ground wire. Hey, Andy's Game Room, thanks for joining. Okay, so rookie mistakes. We could spend all day working on this. Another thing that we wanted to talk about was games that you resold almost instantly, right? So buyer's regret, buyer's remorse. You picked up a game and for whatever reason you hated it or whatever, that thing barely spent any time in your collection and you got rid of it almost as soon as you brought it into your collection. So who's got something to share on that topic?
I can go ahead and go first. Whenever I very first started what is now, my full-time business, it was just nights and weekends as a side gig while I had a day job at Chuck E. Cheese's. For the most part, the money that I was getting, I was using to buy the machines that I wanted for my own collection. I had a list of machines that, if I came across, I was still working out of my garage. I was just going to put them in my garage and have them for me to enjoy. And quite a few of them were machines that I had nostalgia for. They're things that I remember playing at either arcades I worked at or just arcades I frequented. And some of them just they didn't age well, or they didn't quite fulfill the same memories I had as a kid. One of them was a Street Fighter II pinball machine. I remember playing it at an arcade and really liking it and wanting one. And I ended up finding one at a really good price. It was a project, but I did the work to bring it back to life and put it together.
And it was
took me
terrible.
but it took me about 3 years to do, because if I'm doing something for myself, I put no priority towards it whatsoever. So I finally got it together. And yeah, I got ready to play the game, and I got through maybe 2 or 3 rounds, and I was done with it. Like, there's no replay value to it. It's not a fun pen. And yeah, it did not stay with me for very long. I made it pretty and I got it out the door, and I haven't regretted that one at all. One that I think I've mentioned before, but does not go well in a free play environment in the home, is a Gauntlet Dark Legacy. It's great in the arcade. You get that feeling of, your health is running down and you're trying to get as much accomplished without having to put in another quarter. But when you're at home and you can just hit that button and give yourself 9999 health, there's no challenge to the game. There's no appeal to the game. All of it just goes straight out the window. I had a 4-player showcase cabinet of Gauntlet Dark Legacy, hoping I could have friends come over and play. And I mean, they did, but they got bored of it really quickly and wandered off. But if you've added a whole bunch of health, that guy's just standing there. So you can't continue to play unless you're moving that guy along with you. So he's just got dead weight you're carrying, then hope eventually dies. And I'm sure anyone that has that machine in a free play arcade probably has that same issue, where people just load it up with health and then wander off, and you have to reset the game to make it playable again. I think the same thing happens with like Ninja Turtles or some of those other 4-player games that don't really have a free play setting. If you add a button to add credits, someone's going to just put 99 lives on there and wander off. So games like that, if you don't have them in a coin op environment, they're unplayable.
Yep.
And one last one is when it comes to like rail shooters, I love Time Crisis 2 and I love Virtua Cop. And I had those games pretty much memorized. So if I played them in an arcade, I can get through the entire game on 1 credit. I found out if you get through Time Crisis 2 on 1 credit, it puts a star next to your name on the high score to let everybody know you got through the entire game in 1 credit. So I bought myself a Time Crisis 2 solo cabinet just so I could enjoy it myself. And after playing through it once or twice, I never wanted to do it again. There was no replay value. I had the game memorized. So, when I played it in the arcade, I would just play through it and be done with it. I wouldn't play it again for months, maybe years. But if you have it in your home, sitting for months or years before you play it again, it's just taking up space. So, those games don't tend to last in your collection very long once you've mastered them.
Beat 'em up games can be like that too, for sure. Yep.
That being said, Final Fight is still one of my favorite games of all time, and I will go through it every once in a while.
There you go. Liam and Jeremiah, anything for you that falls into this category?
We have only sold 1 intact game, and that was our Asteroids Deluxe Cocktail. And that was only because we picked up an Asteroids Deluxe upright by chance, and we decided we liked that one more. We have brought things in with the intention of potentially selling them if we didn't like them. One of those that came to mind was Firefox. We weren't sure really what we were going to do with that, but we're keeping it for sure. So that's not going anywhere. So no, we haven't brought anything in that we instantly resold. Generally, everything that we have brought in has been something that we were intent with some kind of vision for.
Yeah. How about you, Jeremiah?
I've been thinking of, I've never actually sold a video game machine. Like, I've never bought one and oh, this sucks. I mean, so much dedication to getting one of those running, like the power supply, PCB, the monitor is the big one. But there have been times, I don't know if anyone who's watching is like a constant viewer of my channel, but my first video in the style that I do now was about a coin pusher. And at the end of that video, I said, I got this claw machine. It's not like it's working, but I'm going to go through it. And the reason was I got the thing. It was fixed. Sight unseen. I said at that price, I'm willing to go get it. So I got it. And unfortunately, it just completely worked. So that was like no fun to me. I immediately sold it. And then I bought a basket case claw machine, which is what made the Talon claw machine video, where I had to go through and fix like every single little thing on the circuit board. So the only game I've ever pretty much immediately sold was a claw machine that I got a really good deal on.
Okay. Well, and you're going to be selling at least one of those Pac-Man cocktails soon, but it sounds like you might.
Yeah, but that was I bought that.
Yeah,
I bought
with the
that with that in
intention.
mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For me, I too have not sold any of my games. I'm thinking about trading. I have another Robotron project that I if I could find someone willing to trade an empty bubbles cabinet, I'd be happy to work out a trade there, plus or minus cash. I got some parts and stuff for Robotron, because bubbles is one I'd like to have, but that's not a regret sort of thing. The closest thing I have to a buyer's remorse or regrettable purchase is probably my class of 1981 cabinet, right? So this was one of the earlier cabinets that I bought, and I was with my son, and we went to Coin Hop Warehouse. This is a couple years ago now, Coin Hop Warehouse, and they were still doing like, oh, we're going to be open this weekend. People just come by, sort of pick through the warehouse, look for stuff. And we went there, and I just couldn't find anything that was really, speaking to me in the sort of a condition that I was sort of comfortable taking on as a project or a game that I really wanted. And so I felt, crestfallen that I couldn't find anything. And then, we went and grabbed lunch, and I'm scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, and I saw this class of 1981 for sale, and probably paid a little bit too much for it. The guy helped me load it up, and he kind of cracked the cabinet particle board, loading it up. And it was the home version that had a sticker instead of an actual coin door. So it sat down here for a while, and the kids like playing it, right? It's got a weird joystick, so it's not a great experience necessarily for either Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man or Galaga, and it's got Pac-Man with a code to unlock, but it's actually doing really well because I moved that late last year to my office at work into the break room, and it's doing great sitting there. I see people playing it. Nobody's beaten my high score yet. It's set up on free play, and that monitor is nice and strong. It's a later K7000 19-inch, and even if it gets left on for a couple days at a time, I'm not too worried about it. So that's probably the closest one I have to one that I regretted. We did get a question in the live chat from Angelina, who asked, and I think we've covered this a little bit before, but these things are always moving. This type of question, the answer can always be changing. What's your prized holy grail? So for me, the real, the one that I never expect to actually get is I would love to have a dedicated Major Havoc, and the only thing I have for it is right there is a original marquee translate from a dedicated Major Havoc, so I'm 1% of the way there. The more practical grail right now, I would like to get a bubbles. Are you moving that out of the way because you've got a dedicated Major Havoc back there to show me?
Yeah, Charlie, there's a dedicated bubbles cocktail up at the Arcadia auction that works. It's in beautiful shape.
The Arcadia, where's that auction?
That's in Illinois.
Oh, like Atlanta, Illinois?
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Beautiful,
I wouldn't
beautiful
mind a
cocktail.
cocktail, but it's not a project, and I won't be able to make it my own. So if anyone out there has got a spare dedicated Major Havoc in any condition, or a bubbles, even if it's just a totally empty cabinet, hit me up. What about the three of you guys? What's that current holy grail for all of you?
Ooh.
My holy grail is what I just moved the joust to get to on camera, and that is that mechanical, like fully mechanical carnival claw machine. That thing, I bought that from a crackhead in Phoenix City who had no idea what he had. Like, I handed him the envelope full of money, he didn't even count it. He just took it and like shoved it in his pocket. But those things, to find them in original and still good condition like that, Most of the ones that I see now have been like painted, look terrible, but that thing, that is my baby. And if I get rid of every other arcade game that I own, I'll keep that one. That's my baby.
I think your Wi-Fi router was manufactured the same year that claw machine was made.
It was. It really was.
Yeah.
It needs a new flyback.
Yeah. Angelina put in like the a spinning sort of loading buffering icon, which is funny. She says she's looking for a crazy climber cocktail or mini. She Lion wants a Discs of Tron. She Lion was talking about recently like even not even necessarily an environmental Disc of Tron or just a upright. Angelina mentioned the Bubbles Duramold. Yeah, I've seen a Bubbles Duramold. That would be really, really cool. Dell from Delusionals Arcade, thanks for joining. His friend Troy is finishing up his dedicated Major Havoc. Please don't tell me that the last thing he's missing is the marquee translate, because I've got it right here. Mark from Back to the Media said that Jeremiah sounds like he was talking through the Gorf speech chip. So everyone's got jokes. Kay and Liam, what's your holy grails?
For both of us right now, the top of our games list is the Addams Family pinball machine, which extremely expensive. But as
very
far as
common, very common,
but expensive. But as far as video arcade games go, especially now that we have Firefox, I can't express how nice it would be to have a dedicated Major Havoc to put next to the Firefox, since they are in very similar cabinets.
And
or an iRobot.
There you
Yeah,
go.
both of those would be really nice to have. I love both of them. I think now that we have a Robotron working, iRobot is the #1 most played game on my Steam Deck. So,
What and didn't you were saying Sam really kind of became enamored? Was it with Moon Patrol recently?
Qbert. We're
Qbert,
playing
okay.
Qbert a little more. And we've enjoyed Qbert. We played it in now 2 different arcades recently.
Very cool.
Got a ninja in your room somewhere, or?
No, I was just I'm always worried that the vector monitors are going to go bad, and I know you guys give me crap for running.
Tempest is going to explode.
Qbert
It won't
in the
explode.
background.
Yeah. And then I saw something weird on Joust, but that is actually as part of the attract mode, like when it's showing you like, oh, you have to be higher than the other, boom, right? Like, and like the scores were counting up, right? And I forgot that that's actually part of the attract mode. I'm like, why are there player 1 and player 2 scores on the screen right now? Anyway, old guy moment. Let's see. Sorry, flaked out there. Kay, what about you? What's your holy grail right now?
So I know Holy Grail is supposed to mean like this is the extremely rare games that you're looking for. The games I'm looking for in general is a very short list anyway. I'd like a RoboCop pin that would make my 3rd pin, and those are really the only 3 I'm looking for. So I've got 2 of them. I just need the 3rd. And then I like rhythm games. Dance Dance Revolution is what got me really into arcades in the first place. So I've got myself a DDR. I've got a Drum Mania because I really like the drum simulator. There are 2 more games from that same company that I'd really like. I'd like a Dance Maniacs, which is kind of like DDR, except you wave your hands to break invisible beams, so you look like you're swatting flies. Looks dumb, but the game's great.
Is that like lightsaber VR?
No, it's before that. Like you don't see the beams. They have these kind of circles that are just jutting out, and you just wave over and under them, and break them like you're playing notes, but you don't actually hit anything. It's just make your hand go over the sensor at the right time. So it's like DDR, except you don't actually have to hit anything. And then the other one is a Keyboard Mania, which it's the same series as Drum Mania. And in fact, if you have the right ones, like the right mixes, you can link them together and play them together. You can play songs together. But they stopped making Keyboard Mania after only the 3rd version. And the Drum Mania I have is like the 14th version. So mine won't link, but I'd really love to have a Keyboard Mania because it's just a really unique and fun game that I've only seen a handful of times.
Wild. But again, I'm getting sidetracked by the chat here. A lively group here today. Angelina's got another holy grail for us. Astro Fighter cabertail. Is that cocktail or cabaret, or is it like a
Yes.
trim line where it's kind of both?
Apparently it's both.
Okay. So is that like a Sega trim line? Kind of like what was that one? Head On was sort of that kind of cabinet where it's like a standing cocktail. I guess one of only 6 that exist out of one of only 3 that still exist out of 6 that were made. That's interesting. And Dell from Delusionals Arcade said he got his second grail last week. Charlie, if it's what I think it is, Dell, this is the one that Charles Klein was selling, the PCB, and I know you were looking for it, so I tipped you off to that. And I've got a marquee for you, so I'll hold on to that for you, buddy. Mark from Back to the Media was saying, why has Cuber gotten so dang expensive is a good topic. We've touched on this before. I think it's sort of similar to, Liam, you were talking about the Addams Family pinball, and Steve Waller was also talking about, I guess he has an Addams Family pin. It's one of those things where, right, like there is relatively good supply, but the demand still outstrips that supply, right? Very, very popular game. Gottlieb made quite a few Cuberts, I think something like 40 or 50,000 of them. But so many have been converted, so many were destroyed. And it's a very popular and sought after game now. Even Sam wants one, right? So that's supply and demand, and you should know that, Mark, right? Like in the business that you're in, right? They made a lot of Pokemon games too, but super high demand on those drives the price up. Les was asking, on a different topic. Les was asking about games that track free play, the number of free play games that have been played. And I was saying, some games do have a digital bookkeeping function that will keep track of the number of free play games that have played versus I think most games just have coin counters though. So they're only tracking the number of quarters that have been dropped. And that obviously doesn't track free play games. And then he was asking, what if the BIOS battery quits or dies? Then yeah, you're going to lose that count. Yeah, he said, I watched the Missile Command cockpit sell at auction. Apparently only 10 of those were made. Yeah, cockpit, not cocktail, right? Otherwise,
yeah, that thing was cool. Like you climb inside of it and sit down, and it's kind of environmental.
Well, and
this is fun.
And I'm blanking on the woman's name. She runs one of the Facebook groups. I think she's down in Florida. I don't know if that's ringing a bell for anybody. Not only do I make YouTube videos, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, especially when I can't sleep at night. And I was on a kick for a while of watching video recordings of panels at like old conventions, arcade conventions. And she was telling a story where she was doing a warehouse raid, and it was a multi-story warehouse, including a basement, and they had a freight elevator, and she had already paid for all the machines that she wanted, and the last one to get out was a missile command cockpit that was in the basement, and they couldn't get it into the freight elevator, or the freight elevator was broken. So that thing is still sitting at the bottom of that warehouse out in the middle of nowhere. I want to say she said it was Georgia or something like that. And she was doing a panel with Tony Temple, who is the author of Missile Commander. I got the book right over here. A world record holder on Missile Command, and he also does the Ted Dabney Experience podcast. So yeah, okay. So moving on to our last topic, we got about 15 minutes left. We usually go about 2 hours. Organizing the arcade, right? So Kay was talking a little bit about this before at his warehouse. Sort of, he has this sort of last in, first out, queuing system in his warehouse where he keeps pushing cabinets in, and all the way in the back row, the ones he probably hasn't seen for years. Jeremiah's running out of room, holding on to machines for me. Liam's going through this process now of moving and tearing down one game room and setting up a new one. I'm, running out of not necessarily space issues in total, but space issues in this room and expanding into other rooms. And I got to worry about sort of, power capacity and not overloading circuits. Meanwhile, Jeremiah's trying to get a signal from the moon. So yeah, what's sort of, I don't know if Liam, you want to go first, right? Because this is really top of mind for you. How do you go about kind of optimizing this, right? And sort of what are the sort of considerations, right? Space and power and enjoyment and themes, because I know you also have almost like a little mini museum. You've got like a
This has been a
information, almost
subject
like
of endless debate between me and Sam about how to organize all of our games. Obviously, power, as I've mentioned before on the podcast, all our games are controlled by a computer system. So it's more just like making sure that they're all plugged into different circuits. But that's sort of irrelevant because games generally take relatively the same amount of power. Obviously, games with bigger screens take a little more, but it's relatively the same. So you just put them wherever. So for us, it's fallen into, do you organize a game by its era? Do you organize it by its manufacturer? Do you organize it by cabinet style? Or do you organize it by evolution? Take, for example, in our current arcade, we have Tempest sitting next to Midway Space Invaders Deluxe. Why is Tempest next to Space Invaders Deluxe? Because Tempest was directly inspired by Space Invaders. It was originally conceptualized as a 3D or first-person view Space Invaders game. And similarly, we have a Gauntlet right next to Gate of Doom because they're both dungeon crawler type games. And we might preserve some of that arrangement in the new arcade, but I'm also trying to do things like I want to put vectors with vectors, as we've accrued a few more of those. And I definitely want the Williams cabinets to be near each other, just because they're all running on a similar system and they all shared a lot of common heritage and sort of design philosophy that was going on there. But one hard and fast rule to try to adhere to, which I see that you have done, is when you've got 1-player cabinets and 2-player cabinets, try to separate them, put a 1-player, then a 2-player, then a 1-player, and then 2-player, just so you don't have people knocking elbows when they're playing games.
I'm glad you said that, because I had to rearrange a little bit down here to get the joust in. I recently, a couple months ago, I took the class of 1981 out, and then I took the Centipede out and moved it next to the NBA Jam that's in the kids' room right now. And so the two most recent additions are the Armor Attack and the Joust, both of which are 2-player simultaneous games, right? So right here in this row 5, I've got 3 1-player games and 2-player simultaneous games. And so the Joust and Armor Attack are positioned where they are so that, you can get 2 people in there and you're not have to worry about, bumping elbows and stuff. Obviously,
I still
the
think
NBA...
your Donkey Kong and your Robotron should switch positions. That Joust and Robotron need to be next to each other.
Well, but there's another thing, right? So like the cabinet I have that has the nicest side art is the Donkey Kong, right? Because it's got the original gel coat or whatever sort of material Nintendo cooked on or baked onto the sides of the cabinet, and it's got reproduction, flawless decals that I got from Darren at Phoenix Arcade. So I have that one on the end because not necessarily on camera, although you can kind of see it. Like I can turn around and see that Donkey Kong, medallion decal all the time, which looks great. The rest of them, the Tempest Cabaret has no side art. Joust and Robotron have their originals, but they're a little bit dinged up. Armor Attack has its side art is about 95% intact. So I wanted to have that one there. I guess in theory, I could swap Armor Attack and Joust and sort of then have the Williams cabinets next to each other. Another thing that I wanted is that I kind of wanted kind of a balance to the height of things, right? And like so you can sort of see the posters and stuff. So there's almost like a little bit of like when you're arranging books, right, on a shelf, do you arrange them, by title, by author, or by how it looks, right? Like
you arrange them by author.
Well, there's different ways, right?
You arrange them by author.
Aesthetically, right? Yeah.
According to Liam, there's wrong, and by author.
I might
Those are the ways.
I might swap the Joust and Armor Attack just so the Williams would be together. And usually, like I'm sitting like this, and Armor Attack is probably one of the least recognizable ones. So the fact that one would be behind my head because Joust is more recognizable. I don't know when I'm at work or anything.
You do bring up a good point though with the side art. This has also been something that Sam and I have talked about. is like which of the games have the most beautiful side art and should be seen. Obviously, Tempest is gorgeous. Asteroids Deluxe is gorgeous on the side, and you want to be able to see that side art. But if you line all your games up, there are some that are going to be obscured. So some people solve this on the forums by putting everything at like a 45-degree angle relative to the wall. So it's all staggered out and you can see the side art in all the games. But it's a sacrifice because then you can put less in the lineup against the wall and you just get this awkward corner at the end. But
Well,
yeah. And so
and
they
there's-
also group them by theming too, sometimes, like all the space games and all the fantasy games. And we've talked about doing that also. That's why, again, Gauntlet and Gate of Doom are next to each other because they're dungeon crawlers.
And I've got, there's also like, like you were saying, corners and stuff too, right? Like if you're going to wrap games around a corner, you got to sort of figure that out. And one of the places out in the another space in the basement that I might move games into, I don't know why. I don't know if there's like, is that below the weird, almost like kitchen bump out that we have? But it's not like 45-degree corners. It's almost like a hexagon kind of shape. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to put games in there, they're going to kind of like, be almost like an accordion sort of configuration. And I'd have to, I don't know if I stick, cabarets at those corners because they take up less width. I don't know. And Jeremiah, you have an interesting background there, right? And the name of your channel is Coin Op Corner because that corner is that space behind you. So how do you kind of, sorry that my Taito cab is in the way. How do you kind of decide, what goes where and how to place things? Because, we can see the, your prized cocktail claw machine. We can see the super pack, right there with the spectator Pac-Man head on top of it. But there are multiple games sort of that are masked behind that super pack that we can't see. And obviously behind that, the Taito cab as well. So how do you decide what to sort of put in there and how things are arranged?
Just hoping right now that everyone can hear me. This is something that I constantly, if I've got an extra hour in the day, I'll usually boot up my fire sprinkler software. And in my fire sprinkler software, I have a scale drawing of my entire house and everything, like every shelf, every arcade, all my instruments and my safe and everything. And I just kind of fiddle around with like different arrangements. And because it's all in scale, I can also take measurements and say, okay, if I put the Zaxxon right here where everyone can see it, which you should put your Zaxxon, what kind of walking space does that give me? And after doing that for a few days throughout the week, I eventually came to the conclusion that the layout I have now, minus the Taito cabinet, gives me not only all my video arcades all side by side, excluding the cocktails, but it also gives me the most walkable floor space. Because every couple of months, I'll have 6 or 7 friends over, and they all kind of pile into the Coin Op Corner at once. And this is probably the most comfortable layout for all of that. So yes, I do scale drawings, and then I use that to determine where everything goes. Because I mean, these things are really heavy. If you were to start lining them up on a wall, and then you get to the last one and it doesn't fit, that would be absolutely infuriating. Like you don't want to put 4 video arcades, and then the last one, like, well, I'll put it over here with the claw machine. That just stupid.
You're off by 2
yeah.
inches or something.
Sam and I do the same
Yeah.
thing with Sweet Home 3D. We have a model of this house and a model of the new house and models of all our games.
How about UK? What's your strategy? Just stack them deep, buy them cheap, stack them deep.
Yeah, that's how it is at work. For my own personal game room, my game room is very small. It's my in-law suite, the living room, and I have 6 games. That's all I've got. But those 6 games take up the entire space, partially because Dance Dance Revolution and my Drum Mania are larger than most games. The DDR takes up the space of 4 games, honestly. But I just bought that Cyclone, and I'm like, well, okay, how am I supposed to get this in here? How am I going to make it fit? So I actually rearranged my game room 2 days ago, or 2 nights ago. And the biggest issue that I faced is that there's a small alcove in there. It used to be a closet, but the doors have been removed, and so it's just a small recession. And I had my Play Choice 10 and my Cabaret Miss Pac-Man in there. and they fit perfectly. There's like maybe an inch of space left on the side. But what I really wanted to do was I wanted the main part of the DDR to push back into there so that the pads were the only thing that were sticking out into the actual game room. And I thought I'd get a lot more space that way. But I needed about an extra 1.5 inches of space. I couldn't possibly get that to fit back into that closet.
So you
So
grabbed your
finally,
Sawzall.
I grabbed my Sawzall, I removed the trim, and I only had to cut a couple feet up because the bottom of the DDR is what sticks out so much. I was able to push it back, and I put most of the trim back on, but the bottom of it sticks out just enough. I can't get the entire of the trim back on there. So I'm just going to paint the negative space because it's just bare wood. Just paint it white like the rest of the trim and it won't stick out so much. But I got the DDR to fit back in there. I had to take the top off because it's not tall enough. So I had to maneuver the top inside and set it back on. And it took some finagling, and a DDR together is 960 pounds. And I was moving it without picking up the feet first. So the wheels weren't doing anything on carpet. So
That's almost as much as the Zaxxon weighs.
yeah, it didn't drag
RIP
very
your
well.
carpet.
Yeah. I could see the
Literally,
carpet kind of
rip.
lifting a little bit as I moved it. It didn't rip, but it did shift a little bit. But I got it where I wanted it, and I moved everything around, and I now have enough space that I can fit my Cyclone right next to my Bride of Penbot. And I was worried that there's a couch in there. I thought I was going to have to take the couch out, and that's where the Cyclone was going to go. But I managed to make it all fit. So I can't fit anything else in there at all unless I take that couch out, and even still. The way it's orientated, I couldn't fit much of anything because that maybe a pinball to sit in that same place. But so
Yeah.
if I find that RoboCop, that's where it's going. But
Well, I think this is an evergreen topic too, because, you know, as the collections are changing, you're constantly having to figure out what to do, right? So I know, you know, and perhaps in our next episode, you know, Liam, you might be in a new place. You know, I'll have probably a different configuration down here. I'm going to move I think what I'm going to do is get the pinball machines and move them out to a different room because that'll free up space over here. I want to have maybe the vectors all together and turn those on separately so that I'm not unnecessarily running those. So yeah, this will be a bit of an evergreen topic. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. I want to do a really quick lightning round because we've had some interesting things in the chat, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll give all our plugs for our channels, and then we'll call it a night. So really quickly, Dell from Delusionals Arcade says he wants to be buried with the fully working Mad Planets he just acquired last weekend. And I think that's a different thing the other game I was thinking of is different than the Mad Planet. So congrats on that pickup. Les was asking, has there been any firmware updates on Armor Attack, or has there been only one version software for that game? So I'm not aware of any ROM revisions for Armor Attack. You know, plenty of other games. There's, you know, like Williams games famously have different colors for the different, you know, labels on the ROM chips for slight differences, you know, bug fixes and stuff. I'm not aware of any ROM revisions for Armor Attack. I know that Cinematronics licensed the game to Rockola, so there is a Rockola version of Armor Attack, but I don't know if the ROMs were different. And really, really interestingly, just the other day, Arcade Jason, who we mentioned earlier, a big vector collector at you know, he full-time repairs games. He found an apparently prototype one-off Armor Attack cocktail manufactured by Centuri, right? No one's ever heard of this. There's never even a flyer, no literature, no nothing. He found a cocktail version of Armor Attack from Centuri. There was a Cinematronics cocktail, and I think it was two players on the same side like Joust. What's weird about the Centuri version is the two players are across from each other, and the horizontal monitor is tilted sideways, so both people are looking at the game sideways, which for the gameplay, that's fine, because it's like a maze sort of thing. But all the text is sideways, and so you got to kind of like turn your head to see it. But yeah, I'm not aware of any different ROM revisions. Jumping General asked, how many cabinets do each of you total have in your collection? For me, I think it's something like 25, but half of them are projects. Okay, you probably are around 100, right? Because you do this again professionally.
yeah, if you count what's in the warehouse, I have over 100. But if you just count
Yeah.
what I own personally, I have 7.
And I know Liam and I are around the same. You know, you got like 20 something, I think.
I've got about 20 here with Sam and all but 3 of them work.
I got a lot more than 3 of mine don't work. Mark from Back to the Media said great advice on the 1-player, 2-player being apart. He's going to use that in his arcade, which is great. Yeah, Angelina just saw that weird Centuri cocktail version of Armor Attack. Dell was saying if you put the Joust and Robotron together, they will spawn offspring. Before you know, you'll have a Williams row. So maybe I need to do that to get a Bubbles. Angelina was mentioning a couple of a couple of other games. Dell also said he'll put my Gottlieb cabs together in hopes that it'll produce a Krull. Not that great game. Angelina said, what's your favorite bootleg? She said Crazy Kong, which is going to be one of my thoughts. Any of you guys, are there any bootleg games?
Pokemon.
Okay. Kay or Jeremiah, any boots?
I don't have any. But we did skip me on the number of arcade. I've got 4 uprights, 2 cocktails.
Yeah, what that guy said.
You've got 3 Pac-Man cocktails alone. Yeah, I would also say Ms. Pac-Man, which technically originally I think started as a bootleg. Yeah, Crazy Otto, right? Les asked if any of you bought a game just to find out it was too big to fit in the door of your house. I think Kay ran into this, and then you ran into this with a Jeremiah with a claw machine, right?
Yeah, that's why I started the business in the first place, is that it wouldn't fit in the game room. So I said, well, I got to do something with this thing.
And Dell responded to that saying, this is something that's going to make Liam cry. True story. Dell once bought a 6-player X-Men that would not fit in my house. I had to keep it in the garage and eventually sold it, but unfortunately did not sell it to Liam. I think that 6-player X-Men is on your grail list.
Yeah, we definitely want one. We have a 4-player, but eventually we want to get rid of that and get a 6-player.
What you drinking? This should be entertaining. Asks, what you drinking, Jeremiah? Is that like Kraken rum?
Yes, I want. Where is it? Oh, it's on the floor.
Is that where you're going to wind up soon?
Yeah. This is Kraken rum. This is really good stuff, and it's also pretty cheap, and you get a ton of it. But in between, I'm chasing that with Kroger brand seltzer water because it's also cheap and you get a lot of it.
Mom always says mix in a water every now and then. Kay responded with the Fighting Mania barely fit through the front door. Thor KC, thanks for joining. Says Crazy Kong isn't technically a bootleg, it's a legit rip-off. Yeah, I know Nintendo licensed that to, I think it was Falcom, which is the company that makes the Ease series, right? If I'm not mixing that up, because they couldn't keep up with demand and it was sort of a poor implementation. Bootleg is an unauthorized copy. Yeah, so I think we're caught up there. So why don't we wrap things up here, guys? Each of you want to go around and plug your channels and where everybody can find you, and maybe what the next video on your channel is going to be.
I am Jeremiah Jackson from Coin Op Corner, and in 6 to 8 months, there will be a video where I fix the last Pac-Man machine.
We will all wait with bated breath.
Subscribe.
And I'm Liam from Retrobotics. It's coming soon. Sam and I will put up a video detailing how we pulled a Tron out of the snow and brought it back to life, even if it's still somewhat persnickety. And also soon we will have a video coming out on how we were able to repair the legendarily troublesome Philips VP931 Laserdisc player for Firefox.
I'm Kay from Prime Arcade. You can find me on TikTok at Prime_Arcade, and my next video will be whatever I get to next. I don't know.
You're just making it up as you go along, right?
It's just whatever I feel like working on next, which geographically will probably be a Lethal Enforcers.
There you go.
Just a fun note. My Wi-Fi just started working again.
Oh, good.
Not your
Hey,
video.
let's start the
Evidence determined
podcast
that
over.
to be a lie.
All right, and I'm Charlie from Overtime Arcade. If you're watching this, you know where to find me. on my YouTube channel. I host the podcast on my channel. Coming up, my next episode, I've been doing them every Sunday afternoon lately. I did my Missile Command cocktail overview today, and the video that I'll release next Sunday will be me fixing up that Asteroids Cabaret. So I think that'll do that. I think that'll do it, rather, for this fourth episode of the Coin Jam podcast. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for joining us in the live chat. We had a lively audience today. Thanks for, if you're watching this afterwards or listening to this wherever podcasts are listened to, we really appreciate that. Thanks for all the support, all the feedback. And if I can get this working, I will send us off with a theme song.
Good
So
luck.
thanks.